This. Let me press this. You might have to do all that again, but it's fine. We'll be brief.
That's fine.
So it's weird. Yo, I guess YouTube just added something now. Because I know for a fact that I copied my live stream settings from yesterday's live stream. Maybe, you know what it was? It might have been a setting that Ryan had on that I wasn't aware of. He probably manually started the live stream yesterday, and I didn't even know he did that. Anyway, our first guest, we're starting over. We had a rehearsal. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and we're going to go 4 minutes over. So for those of you who are my other guests in the live stream, we're going to go 4 minutes over because of that. Sorry about that. But hey, 4 minutes isn't so bad. Hey, chat. Okay, so our first guest, Sonic Freak 94. Sonic Freak 94 has, why don't you... I did the intro so well.
Yeah, it was really good.
God. All right. So anyway, I mean, at least you could attest to it. So basically... Mike, why don't you tell us what you do within the Sonic community again for the second time? But let's go brief.
All right. So I'm primarily a Sonic Adventure modder, Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. I've done a lot of my work on SADX PC, and the thing I'm probably most known for is the Lantern engine, which is the Dreamcast lighting for the PC version.
Right, and you can see a comparison right now, and I'm actually going to skip ahead because it's really noticeable. I'm glad you chose this level to do it. Did you do that intentionally? This level specifically?
Some of them, yeah. There are actually some other levels where it's even better, like Ice Cap and Twinkle Park, but
I noticed the most in the pinball section right here. Like,
yeah,
it makes such a difference. And it's one of those things where, like, you don't notice it until you see it. So I'm really glad you put this together for us. You mentioned SA2 as well. And this is one where it's like, it's not really... It's kind of hard to capture what it is exactly you did in a video. So I should give you some time to explain this one. You probably know what I'm alluding to. The Sonic Adventure 2 Battle Net Play is what it's called?
Yeah, I called it Battle Network because
Battle
of
Network.
Mega Man Battle Network and disappointed a lot of people. I apologize. But it's called Sonic Adventure 2 Battle Network, and it is online multiplayer for the PC version of Sonic Adventure 2.
One of my favorite features when Lords and I tried it out is you can actually like make it so that you have your own full screen. Is that correct?
It used to be that way, but that's not the case anymore, unfortunately.
What happened with
it's
that?
It's something I'd like to. So the reason that it was like that is because you were always player one. No matter which player you actually were, you were always player one, and I would just swap them on the other end. But what I did in the more recent versions is you are the player that you actually are. So if you connect to a host, you are going to be player two.
Oh, and that probably works better on the back end then?
Yeah, it's a lot simpler to deal with that way.
Great. I mean, it's a small price to pay, really.
Yeah.
How possible do you think it is to do full, like, have your own screen but still be considered player two? Is that even possible?
Yeah. It's not something that I had the time to figure out. I don't have a lot of time to work on this stuff anymore.
Maybe if SA2 was better, like SA1, then maybe you would do it, right? I'm joking.
Look, I tried doing that play for SA1. It's just not as robust. It can't handle it.
Well, they don't even have multiplayer, so slow down. What's that?
Interesting fact about that. SA1 has support internally for up to 8 characters at once.
Why?
So it can handle it. I don't know. Well, actually, I do know. It's for the cutscenes. All of the cutscenes are controllable characters. Like Eggman and Tikal they're controllable characters too.
Okay, we'll get to Frontiers very soon, but like, this is a never-ending pool of knowledge here. But like, would you say, just like very briefly, would you say that Sonic Team did way more work than they needed to for Adventure 1? Or not? I guess that's a hard question to answer. Now that I think about it,
it's a little bit. I think in some areas it maybe was a little over-engineered, and in other areas maybe a little lacking.
So it was just like lack of organization.
Yeah, it was their first Dreamcast game, Sonic Team anyway. So
that's insane. And also, like, there's momentum in there, and we'll get to that. So what we're seeing on screen right now is, and this might need some explanation, and right after this we'll get into Frontiers, but we're seeing the cooperative play between Sonic and Tails, where Tails can drag Sonic around.
Yeah, that's something I made a long time ago.
We've seen other modders do that. So what you did? Did you do this like before that? Like,
yeah. So those were actually based on this. I just let them have the code. They were like, "Hey, can I use this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, go for it." And they made it better, honestly.
Right?
I just had the video laying around, so
you just had the like actual base code in there and stuff.
Yeah. I just had the
Sweet.
video in there, so I was like, this is cool. I forgot about this.
All right, so now it's time. Are you ready to talk Frontiers? Do you have any particular area in which you'd like to start? I've downloaded the gameplay we've seen so far. So if there's a particular, why don't we go in chronological order? It might end up this way with every guest we have, but the very first reaction, why don't we go through? You got to relive the experience with me right here. So when you first saw Frontiers, I'm playing that first video on screen right now. What was going through your mind when you first saw Sonic Frontiers gameplay?
My first thought was, this is not cohesive at all. This is very, very stiff. Everything is, all your states are very static. There's very, very abrupt transitions between states that don't look very good.
Sorry, I played the wrong video. So you said Abrupt States. Is that referring to animation or not? I'm sorry.
It's related to animation. So it has to do with, like, say you're running on the ground, right, and you jump. Basically nothing about you being on the ground carries over. It's effectively a momentum thing, right? I don't necessarily expect momentum to be here, but it's just so abrupt that, like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel cohesive enough. Same with him climbing on walls and things.
Are you talking about, so there's a particular moment that a lot of people refer to on how he kind of is like stuck to the floor, right? And he's running up like mountains and he kind of like pops through them. I'm moving to that part right now. I'm going through it right now, and he's running on the side of a cliff, and it looks kind of cinematic and cool, but you can tell that he's just kind of sticking to everything. He doesn't kind of like carry his speed with him into the air. Is that what you're talking about? Or am I misunderstanding?
Kind of, yeah. It's a little bit of that, and, like, I don't know, let's say you've seen the parts where he's, climbing up the wall and he transitions to a run. Like,
I can do that right now. Yep. Okay.
So it's so stiff, right? Like, he goes
sudden.
from that one animation and just snaps to the next one and starts running. There's no, like,
animation
transition
blending
states here. It's animation blending, and it's also transition states.
They also didn't do that in Forces, correct?
Yeah, it actually, this whole thing with animation blending and state blending, this all went downhill with Lost World in particular, where everything was very bespoke, separate states that don't blend very nicely together. It almost feels like every action you do is a different game, I guess is what I'm getting at. And it looks like it, to me anyway.
Yeah, and so this is probably something that people are visually used to, and so it's probably not going to bother them as much. So, and we'll also have an animator on later on in the day, so we'll be able to go into deep detail about stuff like that. But let's move on to like things like about like the engine itself, like in the back end, I guess. I might even be using that word completely wrong, but the pop-in we're seeing everywhere. I remember I saw a game developer speak about how there's no way they're going to be able to fix this because the entire game is built on top of that. Is that correct?
It could be. It really depends.
It could,
right?
Yeah, right. It could be different for every case. So maybe my question is wrong. So wait a minute. Okay, so then hold on. If you're making an argument that it could be fixed, how would that be possible?
Here's the thing. I don't think it will be fixed. It will be fixable by time they plan to release, is the thing. It's certainly something you can fix, but like, let's say they want to release by end of the year.
Right.
I don't foresee that being something that they fix. It would probably be a feature that they remove.
Feature they remove. So what would they remove then? Because, what would they remove about the pop-in?
So the thing about the pop-in is there's two components to it here, perhaps three. So most games, what they do is your camera has what's called a view frustum. It's basically two rectangles that form like a weirdly shaped box. There's the one that is your screen, and then there's the one that's way out in the distance, and that's called the far plane. And then if anything intersects with this box, then it's going to render it. But what they have on top of this appears to be what's called occlusion calling, which means that if an object goes in front of another object on screen, it will toss the object behind it out completely. And the issue here is that there seems to be like multiple frames of latency. So in that first part where he grinds down that tower, you'll notice that those rocks on the ground, they're visible already. Like, they're visible from the rail. What happens is that Sonic, the heart, and the rail all go in front of it, and then those rocks disappear.
Oh,
and then as soon as you get close to it, then they pop back in.
It's because it's underneath him, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So couldn't they just make it so that the shape of what's in front of him is just like a different shape, so it includes more of what you could. Well, no, because expanding it would be a different engine, right? Again, I'm not a game dev, so I'm literally being the audience for you. I'm sorry if this is frustrating, but in a way, this is what we're here to do, right? Because there's totally people like me who have no idea what you're talking about. I'm trying so hard to play the footage you're talking about, but also listen. So forgive me if you have to re-explain.
Let me see if I can. That's okay. So
I'm at the part you're talking about though, and I can see the rocks right before he launches off, but because they're underneath him, the game thinks that the player's not going to see it, right? But
And
he
so
stomps.
it unloads them, and it does it more than once. So if you were to step through, I don't know if you can do it in your media player, but if you step through frame by frame, when the heart goes in front of it, they disappear, and then they come back, and then they go off screen, and then come back on screen. And so it had like 2 layers of disappear, come back, and it's putting a lot of strain on the engine. Now, the thing is, usually when you do occlusion calling like that, you don't throw all of this stuff out of memory, so it should come back at most 1 frame later. But the issue here is it's taking like a second for that geometry to come back on screen. Like for it to render again, to pop back in. Yeah. And that's what's really concerning. And occlusion calling, it can improve performance because it basically means, stuff behind other things won't render, right? So it is important. So if they were to remove that, it might have some serious implications for the overall performance. And the game is already running slowly. If you look closely, like later on, the game lags, and it's running at 30 frames per second, too.
Are there particular moments you can see lag?
Concerning.
Because if I'm being honest, and I'm doing a very good job playing the role of an ignoramus, but I actually I don't actually recall any slowdown. I definitely don't think I'm seeing 60 frames per second. I'm able to tell that, but I don't particularly remember any slowdown moments. Is there a moment
it's not particularly severe. It's just that it is there. So it's called a frame time spike, where yes, you're getting 30 frames per second, for example, but let's say 1 frame takes 2 times as long to render and 1 frame takes like a quarter as long. As long as it all happens in the span of a second, you've got 30 frames per second, but it's going to look choppy. And that does actually happen throughout this footage.
So it's throughout. It's just kind of like very subtle?
Yeah, every so often you'll see it. Well, maybe you didn't notice. It can be hard to notice, to be honest. It's something that I noticed, though, because it's something that I'm sensitive to, because I work on these kinds of things. And I also have a very high refresh rate monitor, and I'm kind of spoiled now. But it is something that you will notice. Like, it's the difference between 30 FPS and smooth versus 30 FPS and, choppy and jagged.
Well, I can tell you that I notice it when when he punches the box. Like, it just doesn't look quite as smooth. Am I going crazy with that? The box falling apart just kind of looks a little choppy.
I gotta wait for this stream to... Yeah, I saw that actually. It did look like it dropped a few frames there. And that could be because it had to stream in geometry for the broken box or the particles or whatever.
Okay, now, how much... Are you able to tell if there was any major modifications to the engine from Forces to this? Like the graphical engine? Or does it seem relatively the same?
I think graphically it's relatively the same. They probably needed to make some changes to facilitate the open world in terms of lighting, because it is obviously much larger than anything that Sonic Forces has. And that is something that, I think it's probably important to drive home, is that they took an engine, right? So Sonic Unleashed, Sonic Generations, they had this stage streaming system. So you could go really fast and the stage would load just in time for you to play it. And in Sonic Lost World, they threw that out. And that carried over to Sonic Forces. And here we are in Sonic Frontiers, and now they need it again. And I don't think
are you able to speak about the culture things? Are you able to speak about the culture differences?
Yeah, I suppose I could. So,
because that's a good point. I think people need to know about that. It seems like where you're going too.
Yeah. So, in my experience in Japanese companies in particular, when you've got separate teams, there isn't usually a whole lot of crossover, and particularly on the same team, let's say somebody's designed a system and they leave, right? They go somewhere else. Usually the thing that happens is I guess it really just comes down to they're like, well, we didn't make it, so we don't want to use it.
Out of respect, you could say that that's like out of respect, but
I don't know that that's true, but I can't speak to that in particular.
Right, we can't be sure about any of this, so it's really all speculation in the end. But we're trying our very best to see what we can do to clear as much up as possible. So either way, you can look at it in any way you want, really. But that's kind of interesting. Okay, so they don't share all their assets.
Yeah, and this is also a common thing just in software, like I said, in my experience in Japanese companies, it's just kind of a cultural thing. But also in software, let's say somebody designs some really cool but complex system. Usually if your current software engineers don't understand it, they're probably just going to throw it out because they can't maintain it. If your engineers can't maintain it, then it has no value to you, and you have to replace it with something else. So it's in this case, I think it's probably a mix of both things.
Right.
They had already thrown it out because they had to get this engine running on the Wii U, which was quite the task.
Right, and it's a known fact that their team was smaller in Forces, at least. I don't know about Lost World and the games that followed Generations. But
right.
So okay, so that much people kind of knew, right? They knew a lot of people left after Generations, and again, I want to ask Pox later on about the animation side of things, because I think I heard something yesterday about how like they were just starting. I don't even know if it was from you or not, Mike, but they were just starting their film quality studio, Marza, when Unleashed was starting, and so they were actually collaborating with the game dev team, and that's why the animations looked so polished. Was it you telling me that?
It was, yeah. So
it was like a couple days ago.
I don't know how exactly people shifted around, but at the time of Sonic Unleashed in particular, there was a lot of crossover in animators between Marza and Sonic Team. And I think that plays a big role in why it looked so good. And I don't think that's the same case here. I really like it's honestly, if I'm honest here, I think these animations look a little too stiff. They look kind of amateur. I don't know if maybe it's a direction thing or not, but this is the kind of thing I would expect as somebody who was also an amateur animator at one time. They look very amateur to me. And you can fix like the stiffness of animations, sure. Like as long as your timing and things stay the same, not a problem.
So that's something that could be patched in like 6 months, 5 months? In your opinion?
As long as they have enough time to reanimate. But there's one caveat though. So the way that modern game engines work, and this may be the case here, I don't know. There's a system, like a communication system back and forth. There's an animation system, and then there's your game logic system. And sometimes when you need to know when, say, an animation finishes or when it's reached a certain point, you need to like communicate that back to the game logic. And so that means that the animation code and the game logic code are intertwined. So if you change the timing of an animation or the speed of an animation or the distance that Sonic moves in the animation, you could potentially impact gameplay in ways that you didn't foresee, and you could end up breaking your whole game. Like I've heard that from other game developers too, where they change their animation trees and oops, all of a sudden their whole game doesn't work.
The only experience I have doing that is I remember I was playing online brawl modding, and like we had some mods on one Wii and some mods on another, but we were playing as the same characters, and because we didn't understand how the hitboxes worked, I think on one screen it was Shadow, right, and the other screen it was just Sonic. But because of the way the hitboxes worked, we desynced because the way that the hitboxes worked in Brawl actually was dependent on like colliding with the model itself and not something separate.
Pretty much, yeah. So like the animation can control the game logic in ways exactly like that.
Great.
And that's something that they have to watch out for.
Right. Okay. So I feel like I'm bridging the gap of ignoramus to game dev. At least for me. Okay. So I'm aware I got some questions from super chats. The plan here is to take questions at the last little chunk of every 30-minute segment. I will remind those of you, my other two guests, Noah and Pox, we're gonna go 4 minutes over. I'm sorry, just because I guess I had to start the stream manually on YouTube and I didn't know that. There's too many settings. Whatever. I can't consider it all. Okay. Right. So I think considering the amount of questions we're probably going to get, I'm gonna go ahead and start tackling them now. Let me just grab them. Platinum G, thank you so much for the $2, says, do you think Sega will release the demo to the public?
That's That's a hard question to answer. I mean, I think the demo right now, there is a playable demo at whatever convention that is going on right now, right? But that's under NDA. So if they do, it's going to be probably after their deal with IGN.
So they had a demo for Forces, which I think was the first time they did that. So my stance, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I literally am just like guessing, they would have to have had it planned like they did with Forces. I don't think they're going to be able to like push that out because we're requesting it. Is that?
Yeah. So it depends on the approach that they take. So modern demos that I've played, like Resident Evil Village, for example, that game was basically just the whole game, but they just put it on a timer. Because it's easier to just put the game on a timer than to prepare like a proper small set of content for a demo.
Was
but
Forces
that's how it
like
used
that?
to happen. Forces, I'm not actually sure.
Oh, I'm surprised you don't know that. I
demo
guess
might work.
you were not interested in modding it at all, were you?
I haven't even touched like Generations or anything after that myself. I'm a Sonic Adventure boy personally.
Oh, you haven't even touched Generations, is what you're saying. Oh, okay, so it has nothing to do with that whole like, because there was a lot of modders, and I'm sure you've heard of that, where they're like, nah, I'm not touching Forces.
Oh yeah, for sure. And yeah. I doubt that they want anything to do with this game either. To be frank.
Interesting. I wouldn't say it's like as bad as Forces, but I'm really in the middle. I have no idea. Maybe today's convo will change my mind. All right, next question is from our friend Sam. Sam, thank you so much for the $5. Sam says, question for Mike. If they had a local, I think it says payable, but I think playable he means, playable demo for a live audience ready, which they have, do you believe it could be released online? Oh, we just answered that. Thanks for your $5. Whoa, and he donated after that guy. Sam, come on.
I can touch on that in a sort of a different way.
Sure.
It has to do with this whole like build debacle that everybody's talking about.
Yes, let's get into that. Great.
So the thing about this whole builds thing, right, is everybody's like, oh guys, look, all of these Sonic fans, these toxic Sonic fans on Twitter, they're saying it was the current build, but actually it was an old build. But like, here's the thing, right? There's a couple ways that this could have gone down. So either they put in the time, so like you're working on a game, right? Let's say management says, hey, we made this deal with IGN and we need to give them something playable. What can you do? And they say, all right, well, we can duct tape all of the bugs to make it playable so that they have something. And then we can continue working. And that's just how it goes. Like, it's not like they're like, okay, here's this build from like a year ago for you to play, or from like 6 months ago. They're just gonna, or it could even be actually, it's just they're gonna take what they have that works, what they have that's playable. And if it's not playable, then they're gonna duct tape it together, for lack of a better way to put it, just to like keep it together so that you can try it, right?
Or and probably hide it and prevent people from filming it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Which is exactly what they're doing.
So I think the issue here is that this version of the game was shown to the public at all. And it's not something that the developers need to be blamed on, right? It's not their fault. They're doing their job. This is a management issue. Somebody said, hey, we need to put a build out. These guys need to play it. And the developers probably said, okay, I guess we can fix it real quick. You know what I mean? Like, there are definitely points in time where your game just doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. It's not playable.
And the day that you have an agreement, with IGN comes up, and that's a due date, so you got to make it happen.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And so by that nature, I guess you could say that it's an old build, yes, but this isn't going to be far off from what we get. Like, this is the game.
Because
sure, there's some bugs.
Somebody in charge of the game dev team told the game devs, this is good enough, we are marketing this. Like, of course, I'm pretty sure the game devs, if they're enjoying their time, of course, they would want to keep working on it forever, right? Like, they'd want to keep, of course, but the people managing them are the people that have to tell them, all right, that's enough. Like, that's it. It's time to put it out there. So
pretty much.
Right? That makes sense. Now, I kind of have a follow-up question to that. Is it normal practice? Because we see like screenshots and people are like, oh, the materials are different on this enemy you're seeing on screen right now. Is it common practice, at least in your experience, to use like a less stable build to do screenshots, but it looks visually better?
I mean, yeah, if that's so, let's say, I mean, you might be the artist, right, who just changed this materials, and this is just the build you've got on your system right now. And you're like, hey, I made this look really cool. I'm just gonna take a screenshot, right? It's like this screenshot looks cool. All right, send it to the public. It's not.
Do they
it's
share
not like,
internally? Like, oh, I like this looks really cool as I'm working on it, but it's the build itself isn't stable. They share it internally, and then eventually, because the image is cool, they're just like, yeah, let's use that to get people excited.
I'm sure. Yeah,
right?
like
Yeah.
it's not like some weird conspiracy or something. It's just they're people, you know. They're just doing what works.
Well, and they're still working on it. They're excited too, I
Yeah.
imagine. Some devs are excited. They think it looks good. They want people to see it, because there's also a chance that people will never see it that good, right? Like, their work will be locked away, the key thrown out, and no one will ever see what they did. So yeah, I don't think there's any kind of like dark intentions or conspiracy. I didn't mean to imply that. Okay, I gotta move on to the next question.
But that's just kind of the impression I got from the community.
Right.
They're like, oh, look at what they're doing, you know?
Yeah. No, it's good. This is what this is for, is to clear things up. Okay, so we got around 4 minutes left because we went 4 minutes over. This is a question from I believe Mixed Media is an environmental artist. Mixed Media, thank you so much for the $5. Do you think the loading issues with the environment is partially an LOD issue or a lack of optimization of the assets in the scene? Ooh, they're speaking your lingo. Do you can you play game? Can you play ball?
All right, so it's probably a mix of these things. Like that example from earlier with those like rocks on the ground.
Wait, can you translate? Can you translate first?
So good point. So LOD, by the way, is level of detail. Okay. Usually objects in a game have several different versions of the model, each with like lower and lower poly counts, so that at a distance you're not rendering like a billion polygons on something you can only see 3 triangles of, you know?
Right.
So like as you get further away, it's going to get lower and lower poly. Eventually you're at like PlayStation levels, right? And that's to improve performance.
So they don't do that here though, right?
They do actually. Oh. So on those rocks on the ground from earlier, you'll notice that it loads in like a lower detail version, and it also loads in a lower detail version of the texture set as well. So they've got texture streaming and they've got geometry streaming, and geometry being the model. It's definitely related. Yeah, I think that it's just kind of exacerbated by what looks to me like occlusion calling, which is where they say, okay, well that object isn't visible anymore, so throw it out, you know. And that's why it's taking so long to get it back in, because instead of keeping it there and just not displaying it to you, they're throwing it out and then saying, uh-oh, we need that again, and they're reloading it off of the disk, the SSD. So I'd say, yeah, basically, yes.
Sweet. All right. The Nerds Rambling donates $10. Thank you so much. Game design student here. What would you add to the grind rails to make the player want to... It says G there. I think it means grind there. Leaning like an SA2, or say building up a meter or other mechanics to make the automation reward you. Hey, a creative question. Yeah, what would you do? That's fun.
So, personally, I'm not a big fan of the idea that you're just on really long stretches of rails to begin with. I'm definitely a fan of leaning, and I think that they need to have some kind of momentum. I know that's kind of a controversial statement at the moment, where people are like, oh, this game, they never said it was going to have momentum. But like, you shouldn't be able to grind straight up at a fixed speed. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right.
Well, along with the animations we were talking about earlier, it seems like rail momentum left with a lot of those devs too, right?
Yeah, it did.
And I mean, you can make the argument that it's not... I mean, it all depends on how you design the levels, right? Like if it's not necessary. But then again, the be-all end-all goal of a video game is to immerse you, and so it's a, you could argue how important that one detail is, but every tiny little element goes into immersing you into a world, and the more you can experiment with a game and kind of almost bend the rules a little bit, it feels like you're in a world that you can experiment with. So
yeah,
I think it's dangerous to belittle momentum on grind rails. Of course, there's always two sides to this story, right? Like, it's like, it all depends on how they design the game, and if there's enough variables to play with in this game, it'll be small and insignificant. But if we're grinding rails like it looks like we're doing a lot of all the time, and it's always the same fixed path and you can't do anything new and fresh, then yeah, it's going to be a problem. And so that's one of those things where we don't really know until we have the whole picture. Okay, so I got a donation from another game dev. I'm glad to see them showing up. This is cool. Supersonic68 donates $3 and says, in regards to the always listening comment that you got on your Sonic fanbase problem video from the official Sonic social media, do you feel like we have been listened to? Oh, this is for me. It doesn't feel like it given Sonic's apparent controls. So here's the thing. I did say that Sega is listening, and they are, but it's like we were talking about before. They're listening, but there's also going to be a constant battle between management and the community managers, right? They're going to listen and receive those messages, but at the end of the day, there's going to be somebody above them that decides what's worth spending money on. So the reason that the target of my discussion is like, hey, the movie made you so much money and you're getting all kinds of sales, I think it's time to raise our standards a little bit, and I'm targeting the people that are making those budgeting decisions, because I know that the people that need to be listening are. So to answer your question, they're listening, and that's why we get a little bit of the frustration from the community, because now we know they're listening, so it becomes less of an ignorance. There's less of an ignorance excuse, and it's more like you are deliberately choosing not to, or to drip feed us. So like when Azuka says, oh, I'd like to make another adventure game, but there's no momentum present. I can see how some people would be upset and feel like that's an empty claim. But it's frustratingly incremental, but I do feel like they are listening. All right, so it technically is that's all the time we have to talk with specifically Mike for now. We have to move on. But of course, we've got Mike's @ on the screen in big, large letters. So I mean, can people interact? Can people ask you questions? Is this something that you're cool with doing?
Yeah, go for it. If
Okay.
you got any questions, just hit me up on Twitter. If you're going to follow me, just be aware that I retweet a lot of garbage. But sometimes I post things that I work on, and it's cool.
Thank you so much for being here, Mike. This was, in all honesty, almost more than I could handle, but you did a very good job translating for us, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, have a great rest of your weekend, dude.
You too.
See you
Later.
around. Peace. All right, so it's time for our next guest. Our next guest is going to be a indie dev and also a fan game dev of a game that you might recognize, Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit, and this is going to be Noah Copeland. I'm super excited to talk with Noah Copeland. He's a really funny guy. Let me just get his work examples up real quick, and then I'll give him a ring. I guess my Discord vanished. Give me a sec. I got a new monitor today, so that's why my camera's in a different position. All right, Noah, I'm giving you a call. It's gonna be no warning. Here we go. Here comes Noah. Hope he's around. He's gonna be around. Noah, hello?
Yo, what up? Can you hear me?
Yay, hey, and you're also a good volume. I'm just lucky today with volumes. How you doing?
Killing it. I'm doing great. Happy to talk.
Right? You've been itching to do this, so hopefully the 30-minute time slot is enough for you to get everything you want to talk about off your chest.
It won't, but we'll do our best.
Let's do the best we can. So I was just plugging Sonic Triple Trouble. Is it okay if
Bless you.
I know I know you do music stuff, but I have like background music on. If there's any clip that you want me to turn my background music off and play the audio of instead, please let me know. I understand that being an audio engineer is a big part of what you do. Is that the right title? Did I get that wrong?
Yeah, it's audio engineering, sound design, and musician as well. So all that good stuff, you know. So I have lots of opinions on the sound design of Frontiers as well.
Oh, so we'll get into that really soon. But why don't you talk a little bit about things that you do besides Sonic Triple Trouble 16-bit?
Cool. Yeah. So basically, I've been making games since I was a wee little lad. Right. Took a long break from it to focus on music for a while. So was in a band, did an album, went to school for music production, learned a lot about sound design, worked on some films. I have a film on Amazon Prime if you ever want to watch it called Scott and Crowley, a comic book adventure.
I didn't know that.
Yes,
That is
right.
awesome.
I did all the music for it. I also make a brief cameo in it where I'm arguing about who's better between the Street Sharks and the Ninja Turtles. It's a good time.
An actor too. You're so talented, Noah.
I'd say actor with a small A, just so we're clear, not a capital A. But yeah, so that's fun. Doing the music for that as well as the sound effects for that. Done some sound effects on some indie games. Did some music for some other Sonic fan games as well. Before I just started to make my own Sonic fan game. That's been a long process. During that process, I've also put out some other smaller games. Like I did a Metroidvania. That it was my challenge. I'm going to make a Metroidvania over a weekend. It's a small Metroidvania, but
Is
it's
Metroidvania
one made
the
over
Metal
a weekend.
Ninja? Metal Ninja?
Yes, Shinobi Metal Ninja is the name of it. So that's a really fun one. I also made a UFO game. It's essentially trying to be like when your browser's out of internet and you just need like some dumb game to play. So I made a little UFO thing like that. That was pretty fun and slightly Star Fox inspired and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's basically kind of my background. Currently, I'm just really excited about Triple Trouble because it should be out probably next month. So yeah, just kind of in the weeds of that right now. If you can see my desktop background, it is cluttered and just full of icons. That's how you know you're like about to ship a game, because it's just chaos on your desktop.
So what do you think the desktops of Sonic Team looks like right now?
Insane. Absolutely out the wazoo.
So, all things considered, where are you with Sonic Frontiers right now? Because, like, I got the impression that you're similar to me from your tweets, at least, that you're kind of, like, in the middle. You're, like, cautiously optimistic. Am I wrong?
Yeah, so I think from the day one, when I saw that leak that said that Sonic Frontiers is going to be open world Sonic game, I'm just like, all right, let's do it. I'm excited for it. I'm like, it could be bad, but I at least want them to try it. You know, that's something people have always said for years. Like, what if they did an open world Sonic game? And there's tons of fan games that are open world, that kind of thing. So I'm just like, dude, just try it. See how it is. If it sucks, we can check it off the list. You know, I'm at a good place with Sonic. I think a lot of people are like, get a little too wrapped up in it. They're like, oh no, if we get one more bad game, then I'm done with Sega and Sonic is dead. I'm like, at this point, I'm convinced that Sonic is a cockroach. No matter what you do, you cannot kill him. He cannot die. He has outlived Bubsy and everyone, all the other things. If he can have Sonic 06 and Sonic Boom Rise and all these other games and still be making games, you cannot get rid of him. And so I'm comfortable in that knowledge. That
that's kind of scary though.
Frontiers,
because what if the mentality is like that on Sega's end, right? They're like, oh, we've been through everything. Like they'll be able to eat this up. Like, do you know what I mean? There's a negative spin to that. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I think that's a little too, maybe a little too cynical for my taste. I mean, I guarantee you any of the actual game, I can't speak for management, but I guarantee you any of the game designers actually working on the game, probably not doing it like terribly begrudgingly. Like you still want to do a good job. You still want to, you know, be a creative person and do the best that you can and that type of thing. I don't think they're just, screw it, just phone it in and stupid Sonic can't kill it anyway, you know. But I definitely feel that they may feel some burnout sometimes when they try to, you know, they're like, oh, I'd really like to make a God of War game, but I work at Sonic Team, so we'll make the Werehog, you know, or oh, I'd really like to make Mario Galaxy, but I work at Sonic Team, so I guess we'll make Lost Road. You know, there does seem to be a little bit of like not super always keen on making it as Sonic as possible, but just trying out different ideas that may exist outside of Sonic and that type of thing. But yeah, I don't know that they're abusing it, but Sonic the Cockroach is the best metaphor I can give for it. So that's why I'm excited for Frontiers.
That's a good explanation. So with Mike earlier, we didn't really go too much into the like whole momentum debacle or drama or whatever you want to call it. I think that's what you were mostly speaking about. I feel like that's when you really pepped up and you're like, all right, Noah's had enough. That might be a good place to start.
Yeah. Well, I've had enough from day one. But with momentum specifically, Yeah, I don't think that I was kind of half and half. I'm like, they might try to do momentum, but I wouldn't be surprised. There was a lot of bold talk about like going back to the drawing board and start over, but that didn't necessarily mean momentum, right? So I don't believe that Sonic has to have the momentum pinball physics from the classic games to be fun. I actually enjoy the Boost games quite a bit. I love both versions. I don't buy for a second this idea that Boost game is objectively worse game design because, on what standards? Probably some subjective standards. So I love Boost. I love momentum. So for me, it's not a deal breaker that Forces isn't doing momentum. And if there's one thing that I think that's kind of clear that we should say is anyone that's disappointed momentum isn't there and says they should add it in, like, I don't think that's not realistic at all, right?
Well, it's weird. It's like if they just simply add a roll skill and it's with the existing terrain and none of the level design makes you have to use it, it would feel tacked on and useless. I think that's possible, but yeah.
Well, also functionally, you're thinking about it. I mean, look at the spot where Sonic's running on like up a wall and he's like angle like shifts like 3 times in his animation on the way up there, and just how in general kind of like ragged and jagged it is when he's like moving up on the collision. If that's your angle detection system, if that's your collision detection system that you're working with, putting momentum physics into that in like a roll or something sounds like that might not be a good foundation to build on. I think that might result in Sonic just flying out.
Exactly, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. So yeah, with the system like that, it'll probably just like, it'll work sometimes, but then it'll just end up sending you into the sun other times. Oh god.
So I don't think that just adding in this game was not designed with momentum in mind, at least not to a big degree. So I don't think you're kind of added it in. Like people
not
say
even a little tacked on roll. Okay, no, it's good. I mean, that's something I thought maybe like just a tacked on roll that doesn't do anything, but it's kind of there. But no, that's fair. It's fair.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, there's maybe some kind of ways you can fake it, but it won't be like super like true pinball physics type of thing. Like people ask for, there's that hashtag to delay the game, but I think it's important that there's kind of two people. There's kind of like two things that people are saying when they talk about whether it should be delayed or not. Is, do you want a better version of the game that Sonic Team wants to make, or do you want a different game entirely?
Right, and if you're asking them to delay it for a different game, then yeah, give up. Like when I said delay, I'm like, hey, what you have here I think can be successful, but it needs some more polish because everyone is watching.
Yeah, because I think and I don't think people often understand what I mean when I say a different game. If they say no, just do the same game that's here, but just add momentum to it, I'm like, that's asking for a different game, right? Like if that's a big factor that would affect all of game design across every system. So if you can't just add it on later. That's essentially a different game at that point, right? So
and I think
you're not going to get momentum from a delay.
It's unfortunate because I think the people we're talking about just kind of go like, it's the same kind of people that are just like trash game and then they leave the conversation. So I think the people that are here participating and watching more or less understand that is a completely different game. Like there's no way that that's possible in a delay. So,
and the grind rails don't bother me either, right? Because like there's clearly supposed to be some sort of magic grind rail that's pushing Sonic up, right? And so the game's designed for that and with that in mind. So I don't think it's like, oh, we'll just redo the grind rails to make them like SA2. I'm like, you see how many grind rails are in the sky, man? Like that's so much work you'd have to throw out just to make them have momentum. They're designed to have this magic auto pushing grind system, so that's the way it's got to be.
Yeah, and I can definitely see how doing that would make it more accessible, right? Because that's clearly what they're aiming for. They're trying to make Sonic as accessible as possible. Now,
yeah, that's a great point too, because I don't think a lot of people realize just how inaccessible momentum feels for a lot of people. A lot of people don't like that you're so bound by your physics and by your inertia previously. A lot of times, people are just like, hey, I want to go there. I just want to snap over there and just snap in that direction. Where it's like, nope, you got to wait for you to stop your current momentum and pick it back up, So yeah, some people, it is an accessibility sort of gate that momentum is,
Yeah, so like I totally am. I agree that this is an intentional thing. I think it was you that was saying like it's not incompetence. Like yes, they maybe struggled implementing momentum with like Generations Classic Sonic, but like it's clear based on what we've seen that they're not even like.
Yeah, it's just different goals.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like they're like, oh, we really want to do momentum, but we're too stupid to make it work. It's just like this is a team that's made boost games. They're making more boost games. Like, I don't know why that's such a surprise.
So you said something a while back, and all being on social media probably longer than I should. I collected a negative inner voice to throw at you. Ready? Okay.
Oh, heck
so
yeah.
When you say that like you equally enjoy boost and momentum or like classic games, do you say equally? Is that misquoting you? You like them both? You said.
I don't know if it's equal or not, and I don't know. Honestly, it just kind of depends on my mood.
The direct quote was that you liked them both, so let me just go with that. So you liked both, and you said that one doesn't make them, like, one isn't inherently better than the other. But I see some people, when they make the argument that momentum is better, they typically are saying that, like, there's more options with momentum because depending on the amount of speed that you have off of a ramp, you technically can do more with level geometry with momentum.
Yeah, 100%.
So there's more
100%
options.
You can. There is more options. There's way more player agency and expressiveness with momentum. But are those your desired features for your audience? Not necessarily. I think we talk a lot about diversity in video games, but I don't think we talk enough about the diversity of play style. Because people play games for all sort of reasons. People play visual novels. I'm not going to play them. I may have my opinion of the games I want to play and what I think is most engaging, but I wouldn't say that one is inherently better or not. I think a good example is like compare Breath of the Wild to like an Uncharted game. I play both those games. I like a lot of those games. In Breath of the Wild, you have an incredible amount of agency to just go around and set stuff on fire and just do sort of interactions that the designers maybe didn't even foresee happening. In Uncharted, you're on a roller coaster. It is going in one direction and you have very little control over what is happening. And it just depends on what mood I'm for, right? So yeah, you get 100% more options with momentum and that type of expressiveness. But sometimes it's just like, dude, bring me that roller coaster. Unleash, let's just zoom down a path in a very arcadey sort of way and make it happen.
And the
so
same
that'd be my
applies
answer to that question.
The same applies to music and visual arts too. Like over detailed isn't sorry. Detailed, not detailed. Detailed's the wrong word. Sometimes simplicity is better.
Right, yeah. A simple design can stick out a lot stronger than a really detailed one or really high fidelity sort of one, 100%. I mean, most of the songs you listen to on the radio are 4 chords, you know? They're not some classical suite that has a bunch of key changes and all that stuff. It's not progressive rock or jazz. It's the same 4 chords over and over, yet it still speaks to a lot of people. So I think there's room for both.
Yeah, and I think the way you described it, I think I'm really, really glad that you explained that because that really addresses the kind of elitism that you see sometimes, like, momentum has more options and therefore it is better, and like the simple approach is like awful, but like the most simple designs are arguably become the most popular things, right? Like pop music, Pikachu, Mickey Mouse, Sonic as well, like, right? Like
Sonic
it translates over many different types of art forms. So really, when you think about it, it's really just down to your taste. This is actually kind of a good segue because we were talking about different art forms and we were segueing into music. So you want to talk about the sound design, and we haven't talked about that at all. So let's do it.
Yes. Yeah, so I actually think there's a lot of talk about the stiff animations and saying the animations are kind of stiff, and I don't disagree with that. But I think sound design is sort of this thing that often goes like an unsung hero. It's basically like it affects you more than you realize. Visually, we're very visually oriented, right? So we are more aware of when visuals are off. But if sound is off, it can affect us without us necessarily being aware of it. So I actually think that even if Frontiers didn't improve the stiff animations, if they could improve the sound design variation substantially before release, I think that could do a lot into improving sort of what is perceived as stiff animations.
Oh, so then what have you perceived so far as stiff sound design, so to speak?
Yeah, so if you look at the enemy that's just all the orbs, right?
Okay, so
every
I
time
actually
you break one of those orbs.
Hold on, I'm right now playing the first gameplay reveal with the sound on. Should I go to the combat gameplay?
Yeah, we can go to the combat because that's where I think the most issues are coming from, is the combat, and that's where a lot of the stiff animations are as well. is the combat. That ore boss, when you're breaking every little ball, it just sounds like balloons popping. So the sound itself, I think, is a little could use those a little weak. It needs more of like a metallic thing, in my opinion. But that's just my personal opinion. However, the real thing that I think is preventing it from selling is the lack of variation. It sounds like it's just one sound played over and over with some slight variation in pitch, but it's just the same sound file. So it's just stop. You know, it's just machine gunning, just pop, 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 pop. There's not like a lot of variations to round robin in between. Does that make sense?
Even that zigzag motion he does is just like the same sound.
When he does the giant eagle kick or whatever that thing is, it's just it's just the same exact audio file played 3 times in a row with no variation.
And I'm pretty sure that's the same sound he uses for homing attack.
I wouldn't be surprised, you know? So I think that just adding a lot, it just really makes the sound design flat. Something the sound designer said to me once that I really liked is that your sounds are only as good as the least dynamic layer. So the more dynamic and variation there are, like have a bunch of different popping sounds for those that balloon enemy and cycle between them, that sort of thing. The sound itself, I think, is a little weak, but the variation is what really kills it for a lot of that stuff. So I hope that they get more sound in there, because sound can carry a lot. I don't know if you saw, I did it, or I think you did see, I did a sound redesign of kind of how closer to kind of how I thought it should be in Frontiers. And I feel like when you're watching it, the animation, I did like a before and after. There's the version that's on this IGN build, and then here's my sort of take on it. I feel like it makes the attacks feel stronger and look stronger, even though none of the visuals have changed. Just that bit of sound design there makes all the difference, you know. And same thing with, I think, the music as well. It's so somber and sad. I really hoping to hear, and I'm sure they will, but I'm hoping to hear a little more bopping tracks in there as well. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely, I would agree. But it's rumored that the cyberspace levels have that. I'm actually going to play the clip you were talking about on stream right now, just so that they have the proper context. I've been doing a pretty good job so far. Okay, so this is Noah's, what do you call it?
Sound redesign.
Okay, sweet. All right, so let's listen to it. Before. Yeah, and it's a short little clip, short and sweet, but it gets your point across. Thank you so much for that. Wow,
yeah,
yeah,
you can
what
hear
a
there's
difference.
just more metal in there. There's more bottom end, and just more general impact to it. And the visuals haven't changed, but it feels like it affects the visuals, if that makes any sense.
Oh, no, it absolutely... Well, it does feel... It affects your experience. And again, it ties to what I was saying before. Really, immersion is what we're looking for. Like, we want to feel immersed into a world, and that brings up, like, the story aspect, right? Like,
yeah, and you being a visual artist, it probably fools you less. You're like, no, I can tell the visuals still are stiff. But, you know... But if this was the first thing we saw, it would have made a world of a difference. Absolutely. Like, every piece, no matter how small, comes to making the entire picture. Like, it all comes together. All right, so we have about 10 more minutes. I know, it flew by. I'm going to try my very best to grab some donations, which will, come with a question likely for you, but could possibly be for me. Okay. So the Crazy Gamer donated $1.23 and says, keep in mind that I'm no graphics guy, but knowing how big the game seems to be, how do you think the Switch port will run? Pretty jank, dude. Prepare for it now, but if you're a Switch owner, I think you should be used to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. They'll probably be used to it. Do you think it'll be that thing they've been doing recently where it's like it's a stream? Like, I don't know what that's called, where you're like technically playing.
The cloud version.
Yeah, that's what it was, the cloud version.
Here's the deal. I don't think a lot of people realize is that Sonic Team has had their work cut out for them from day one to try to just make your first open world game and get that working on a technical level is no small feat. I mean, if you just look at Insomniac, they made linear Ratchet and Clank games for years. Then everybody knows when they made Spider-Man, this giant open world game. But a lot of people forget about the small open world game they made in between that called Sunset Overdrive, right? And just go look up GDC talk after GDC talk about them learning how to completely change the way they ran their tech in their studio just to accommodate that open world, to accommodate the open world design from the tech, from the just the world in general. So Sonic Team, to To make their first ever open world game as a studio is a feat. To do it on an engine that was designed for hyperlinear games, the Hedgehog Engine 2, is a feat. And to do it so that it also runs on PS4 and last-gen consoles and Switch instead of the SSD consoles, which can stream things a lot faster, that is no small feat. So I definitely expected a certain degree of some technical jank coming in. But yeah, so it's a... I'll be very curious to see how the Switch version runs.
Oh man, me too. I'm nervous for it. But how did the Forces port end up being? It was okay, right? I mean, it was Forces.
I actually can't speak to that. I played it on PC Master Race, so I don't have any.
I'm the same way, so neither of us know. Let's move on then. Supersonic 68, if you don't know, is a dev. You must know him. You know Supersonic 68, right?
I'd have to see the profile picture.
Supersonic 68 most recently made Virtua Sonic, the VR Sonic game.
Okay.
And Supersonic 68, thank you so much for the $3 donation. They ask, you can play Sonic Adventure 2 Battle without ever rolling down a hill in order to go fast, but you're certainly not getting an A rank. A low skilled floor and a high skill ceiling was originally at the core of Sonic's design. Both can coexist in an open world. Sorry, Zone.
Yeah, 100%. And I still think there's still a skill ceiling with boost as well, right? Like I think the ranking system is pretty jank in all the boost games, but you can definitely, if you just watch somebody play the boost level for the first time versus like somebody that's very good at speedrunning the boost games, do it and just nailing all the quick time events or nailing all the tricks and that kind of thing. There's definitely still a skill ceiling there, even without it. So again, I don't think it's necessarily inherent that it has to be skill coming from momentum in Sonic, but I mean, you're using Sonic Adventure 2 as an example. That's my favorite game of all time, right? So I can't, it's not like I don't love that game so much, but I just don't think it's the only way to make a Sonic game.
Well, yeah, and especially being a creative individual as yourself, that has made multiple different art pieces, you probably know that like you can make something incredibly new, and it feels even better than what you did before because you started with a clean or a blank canvas, so to speak.
And that's always your goal as a creative as well. So that's kind of what they're doing now. They're like, hey, let's do open world. We've made linear boost games. Let's make an open boost game.
Okay, so we got a couple questions here to hammer out and only 3 minutes to do it. So a Nerd's Rambling donated $5. Thank you so much. And says, great sound variation example. Link's different spin attack charge tiers and breath... Wait, what? Link's different spin attack charge tiers in Breath of the Wild. Higher the charge, the higher the pitch, plus a unique yell only for it. Did you play Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, so he's just pointing out an example of how variation in sound can affect the feel of like an attack or a weapon. So where you are charged on that Master Sword spin will affect where the sound is, where its pitch is. I don't recall enough, but I'll trust him to say there's a unique yell when you do it. So yeah, it all goes in there. There's probably not that much variation between the animation, but that sound is going to play a big part in that.
Oh, really? Okay, so that's why they were giving the example, because it's really the sound that carries that. Because I was anticipating, like... Wind Waker is more fresh in my mind, and so I remember there being a counter feature where it would show like your sword would light up if you time it right, and that's animation giving you the signal. But that's sound and animation, because I think it does a little like bling when you do it too. So this is an example.
I think it also raises in pitch as well in Wind Waker.
Yeah, but that's just such a beautifully designed game, so not surprised. Amen. Silvernick donates $10. Thank you so much, and says, I still think what we're seeing definitely won't be the final product, and it'll get polished later on. I remember when Unleashed revealed its beta gameplay, and it shows the same issue. I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you remember this, Noah, but I'm pretty sure Unleashed was leaked, and then they kind of had to announce it. They had to almost show gameplay because it was leaked.
Yeah, so I was out of the loop at that point. That's when I was busy messing around with music, so I wasn't there for that. But kind of to more answer the question, I think, or sort of the observation is, it definitely could improve by the time, but I don't think you should necessarily expect it to improve too much. What you're seeing now is probably close to what you're going to get. So just kind of learn to accept that and deal with that now. But it could improve over time when we see it, you know. I mean, Sonic Team is not, I think, as big a team as we think. This isn't, I don't know if they quite qualify as AAA. They're not, they're certainly, if they are AAA, they're certainly smaller than many AAA games. So we could see tech issues sort of improve but between now and then, but it may not. We'll just have to see.
And I guess I'll save that for animation because I was going to ask about animation. Let's get these done. Rising Revolt donates $5. Thank you so much. How do you feel on the game's aesthetic?
So that's probably maybe the thing I might be least hyped on. I think the aesthetic. I'm not a huge fan of the real world looking thing, but given that a lot of open worlds are sort of generated procedurally, that's probably like sort of a perhaps more standard way of like doing it, to just make a realistic sort of world, because that's sort of what game tech is often designed to do. So it doesn't bother me that there's floating rails in the sky. I don't know why that's such a trigger point for most people. Sky rails, there's literally a Sonic level called Sky Rail, you know. It's just like, floating around the sky is not that big a deal, but I wish it did feel a little more Sonic-y and didn't feel like it was borrowing so much from Breath of the Wild, like with the music being the piano thing. But at the end of the day, aesthetic does play a big part, but I am most excited to look at the gameplay and see how that goes out. And the IGN people that have played it have all been pretty positive on the actual game. So that's the thing that has me most intrigued, is we're kind of looking at it without a controller in our hand and saying, I don't know, man. But anyone that has had a controller in their hand has actually been pretty positive about it, which surprised
in my experience
me.
too. Yeah, everyone has said that, which is strange, but yep.
So that actually has me, like, when I heard him say, like, I spent 4 hours in this game and I think it's pretty good, I'm just like,
what?
You know what?
Right.
Let's do it.
I mean, that's wacky. Like, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. My thing about the aesthetic is I feel like I would feel so much better if there was floating islands connecting the rails. It would look so cool to see floating islands in the distance too. And it's also a Sonic thing, so it would just make me so happy. And
here's the deal. Would it be better if the grass was checkerboarded?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it like.
But that's more Sonic-y.
You're right, but I am right in the middle of classic fan and like modern fan. I like SA1 is like where I really liked how everything was going. If it was up to me, SA1 would be a little bit more stylized like classic games, you know, a little bit more imaginative. But checkered grass, I feel like when you see it on like a really flat, like big plane, it just looks really bad. In my opinion.
Messy. It's funny you bring up SA2. It's funny that you bring up SA2 because I just remembered, like, why are people complaining about floating rails in the sky? When that game had floating highways, like cars are just flying on these inhuman loops and floating highways.
Well, let me clarify.
This is supposed to be San Francisco.
My favorite is SA1, not SA2. But just because I need to clarify that, because I feel very strongly about the two. But I really do like SA2 as well. But SA1, I like the a slightly more open design. Anyway, one more question, and then we're gonna swap out. Jaden XV donates $5. Thank you so much. Boost has always been skillful. It just became less skillful with colors/forces. Maintaining speed with boost takes skill. We'll see if Frontiers does.
I think that's actually a great point to bring up. I think a lot of people, when they talk about boost, they point to forces, and I kind of don't think that's fair, because I'm like, don't point to the worst example of something as the sort of poster boy for it. I like the boost gameplay, but I think forces didn't particularly do it well. It was a team of new level designers that didn't work on colors or generations or that type of thing, and I think it shows. So if you're talking about boost on whether or not it's good, just don't look at forces in my opinion, because I don't think it's using the same design principles if you just look at how they're laid out as it did in Unleashed. Unleashed might be the strongest. It's so in your face. And then they dialed it back for generations a little bit, and that may have been a sweet spot.
Yeah, it's like if I could choose, I would take the visuals of like how it handles visuals, like animations, world design from Unleashed. But I just like how Generations, like level design wise, they tried to open it up just a little bit in certain portions. They tried to just open it up. There's little open sections where you could do more stuff. Just here and there.
Not that it was just open, but also it was a little easier in Generations. Unleashed can be pretty difficult. It's pretty aggressive in its game, so it's definitely a skill-based gameplay style, depending on how you do it.
Sweet. So this was really great. And guys, I know a lot of you guys were commenting, saying like, "Oh my gosh, like they're just gonna like be toxic and like pick apart the game." No, man. Like, I'm right in the middle, and I think Noah is too. There are definitely positive things. There are definitely things to be happy and positive about. It's just like any other thing that happens.
But there are issues too, you know.
Yeah,
so
there's gonna
we'll
be
see.
issues, and we're gonna call them out, and we're just gonna cross our fingers and hope that we can make some sort of impact, and maybe they'll be polished up. We know that Sega's listening. They literally said that they're listening to me when I said they're listening. So
Yeah.
let's see if how much they're listening.
Yeah,
All right,
and I'm
Noah.
excited to see what Poxy says about it too, because if you don't know, Poxy and I worked on the on Old Tales channel, the Sonic Mission Adventure series that never happened. So it'll be good to hear from him again.
Oh, wait, did you do the sound design? Were you doing the sound design on that?
I was doing some sound design and some music as well as the writing. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. I actually had no idea you were on that project. All right. Thank you so much, Noah, for chatting with us today. This was like really uplifting. I feel like really good. Thank you.
Cool. Peace out, and please play Sonic Triple 60-bit next month.
I literally, if I try to avoid it, I will have to play it. I literally can't. Like, it's a masterpiece. Wonderful job.
Thank you so much. You have a good one, man.
Peace. Have a good day. All right, so we've made it to our very last guest. We're going to talk about the animations. We've covered a lot of ground here, guys. Like, I thought this would be helpful, but this is great. This is really, really great. Please support Triple Trouble when it releases. Well, without any further ado, let's get Pox in here to talk about some animation. Pox is an animator at Playtonic Games. Yes, we can actually say which company this game dev works from. Before we couldn't. Sorry, again, my monitors are new, and so I'm just a little lost. Give me a second here. Time to give him a ring. Here we go. He's gonna be the one that sounds bad. Ready? Gonna be too low in volume. Also, God is in my room. Hey, Pox.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh my God. That was my fault. That was my fault. I thought you'd be quiet, so I turned you up really loud. But also, are you using like? Wait, talk again.
Hi, how you doing?
Are you like in an echoey room?
I mean, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hang on, let me try closing this door. This might help.
That might help. Yeah.
There we go. The door is now closed. I'm probably going to be echoey. I'm not in like a professional studio or anything.
No, that's totally fine. I'm not either. All right, so welcome, Pox. How's your day?
It's going good, man. Going good. Chilled out Saturday. Been working a week, but we're here talking with you here today.
We're here. You're two people.
Yeah. Well,
someone
you
with
know,
you?
the royal we.
The royal. We are here today to talk animations. But before that, we got to give you your props because the work you do. There's plenty of examples, but we have a couple of examples here. Just the three. Let's start with this one. I believe this is this? Okay, so hold on. I gotta tell you what the title is. Copy of secondary animation smear frames. You spell animation wrong, by the way.
Okay, so this was, there's no need for that. This was one of my final year at uni projects. This was like just a big test animation that I did because I was allowed to do Sonic. They just kind of, in fact, a lot of people at my university, a lot of my lecturers kind of promoted the use of Sonic. They thought that, like, you know, the values that Sonic have in animation are kind of like helpful in key, which is really nice. But this was from a good few years ago. I mean, I've been animating Sonic for nearly 10 years now, which is kind of nuts. And I've animated you a lot, which is a weird thing.
Segue, I'm going to play. So the next clip we have here is Pox animating my Sonic voice. Yeah, I do a Sonic voice. I don't really talk about it a lot, but I do that.
Oh, back in the day.
I'm going to play it. Try not to cringe, guys. Let's go. Here is Pox animating my voice. Oh, is it going to play?
Finders keepers, pal. Oh, give me a break. Now I'll show you!
And that was it. Short clip, but short and sweet. That's probably a symptom of, or not a symptom, an evidence of truly how much work you put into these animations. Because there's like so much going on. You do more than try. I'm actually going, I'm going through them like really slowly so people can see like how many things are going on.
Should have sent you like slow-mo versions of everything.
No, it's okay. I'm on a video player where I can kind of like seek through it and show them. We got one more example. Now, I don't exactly know how to approach this credit, Pox.
Okay.
It's the game you kind of worked on.
I'm kind of spread around a lot of fan games that didn't really work out for different reasons. For development problems, for just general life getting in the way, or like I said, just technical limitations. So, for a while, I was working on the reanimated project of Sonic Smackdown, which is a fighting game that I think a lot of people in the community know. And I was brought on to animate all the characters. And this was a pretty close part that we got with Sonic, because I wanted to do his level 3 special attack, you know, like those super moves you see in like Marvel vs. Capcom and Street Fighter and Dragon Ball Fighters and stuff like that. So this was more or less a proof of concept of what we could do. Unfortunately, a lot of the work that I didn't make it in because, like I said, life got in the way. Things kind of like crossed paths and stuff. I've had a bit of a weird history with Sonic fan games, but I can say, if I can quickly promote this, I am successfully and currently working on Project 06 with Chaos X.
Right, you were teasing that before, right?
Yeah, we got a lot of things. We showed off some Shadow the Hedgehog stuff, but I've been working on multiple different characters, as well as something that obviously I can't talk about. We want a lot of things to be a big surprise. Something that will be, I can't really say anything. You're just gonna have to wait up until the silver demo drops.
I can't
We've
wait.
got a lot of exciting stuff coming.
No,
so.
no, I can't wait. Tell me now. That's how
I'm gonna wait.
That's how people are with Frontiers. But hey, that's just again evidence of the incredible work that you do, right? Because people are excited for it, similarly to an official product. So.
You're so good at these segues, man. I just want to say that you're doing really, really well.
Thank you so much. I'm not so great at switching the assets, but the segues, I got those. I got it though. Your name was Noah for a little bit on one of the screens, but they know your ad. It's fine.
Also, can I just say real quick, Noah shouting out Misadventures. 1, thank you, but 2, how dare you? Come on, man.
Thanks, but F you.
He's an incredible composer and an amazing game dev, but really, you don't have to bring that back up.
All right, Pox, we can't avoid it anymore. How do you feel about these animations in Frontiers? As somebody who works, you're probably working on a video game right now and doing the animations, probably similar to this, walking animations, playing through. You work at a company that makes platformers, right?
Unfortunately, I can't speak of anything that's going on at Playtonic. I can, something I've seen a lot is that people were concerned about if these people are actually devs, and can I just say, speaking for the other 2 people behind me, they are all incredibly like talented and obviously hardworking developers in their own right, and 100%. I myself have been in the industry for about 3 years. I worked on Returnal for the PlayStation 5. So seeing the evolution of Sonic animations, and again, we've been waiting for this game since Forces, right? And Forces was a bit of a change up from Lost World, and all these modern age games, like following generations, I'm gonna be honest, the animation has slowly been getting worse and worse in an artistic sense, I'm gonna say. And seeing Frontiers, I knew that we were gonna get a lot of what we already saw. Especially with like locomotion, you know, running, jumping, grinding. But I'm gonna be completely. I'm quite let down from what I'm seeing. Everything seems, animation-wise, everything seems. All in all, I'm on the hype train for Frontiers. I am quite excited.
I heard you say that, so I wanted you to squeeze that in there. Continue though. Continue about the animations.
Yeah. I am excited for Frontiers. We just need to see more. Same as everyone else, you know. We need to see more.
Yep.
But the animations, they're just, for lack of a better word, they are very stiff. The thing about animation in games is that it's not actually that big of a priority in the development sense, because you've got, you know, the main coding, the main writing. Animators typically work well and closely with the designers of the game, right? So the people that manufacture and come up with ideas of how games can work, and then we work alongside of how We can present that. You get rough versions that can actually carry on for multiple months. It's not out of the question to completely redo a character's animations months into the game, right? Like that's completely normal.
5 months before release?
Yep.
Really?
No, I'm gonna be honest, dude, and especially with people. Listen, the people that are working on this game they're professionals. They are industry professionals, regardless of how we feel of their prior Sonic experiences. Right? They are in the job. Listen, it's totally possible. I'm watching your stream, and I just saw your face just come straight up on me.
I knew you would have a delayed reaction to the zoom in. I was just waiting for it.
No, it was there. But we got to remember the other animations we're seeing, right? Enemies, bosses, environment. There's not a lot of animation going on in the environments. They're fine. They're really good. In fact, I think the enemy animations are very well telegraphed. They're very well done. They get the point across. The biggest culprit right now is Sonic, and that's obviously a huge problem. But that's not a lot. A lot of Sonic's animations seem pretty normal. They seem pretty. They sell what you're doing. They just lack the push. They lack the punch. You know that it's all substance, no style, and that's the problem. That's the thing that's been missing from Sonic for about 7 years now, which angers me. And I think the best example, as you're playing this footage, is when he's performing the tricks. We've seen tricks done in Sonic before, Sonic Generations, right? They flowed really well, they meshed together really well, and they would always end on like a flashy pose, like either an adventure pose or something like that. Here, it feels very jank. It feels thrown together. And I know your first mic that was on was talking about animation blending, right? And there are multiple ways of doing this, and they clearly work in a completely different engine from most other games that are brought out, like Unreal and Unity. You can have things blend through game code, which is a lot harder to fix later on. Or you can have things work in like animation states. But typically, blending is something that you don't want to rely on. You want to have the animations work directly from the animation file. So if you had something of Sonic landing, right? You would want the immediate end frame of that animation to match up with Sonic's idle so that there is no need for a blend. It works seamlessly and perfectly.
Well, I will say it seems like they kind of do that with the but it actually causes a problem. It seems like they kind of do that with the midair punch, right? They're trying to blend it into his idle animation standing on the ground. But
I can tell you right now that they are just ground animations. Like that's it. There is nothing different to that. Those animations are activated by pushing the attack button multiple times, and then it always blends back into idle, which is a problem.
So do you think, I mean, based on putting together what you said, it is possible for them to add animations before release to fix stuff like that?
Depending on how early this build is, this could all just be gone. But again, thinking about Sonic Team's last couple of years in animation, like I will say Lost World was animated quite well. Everything kind of worked together really well, but Forces really showed a lack of polish and attention, and it's really difficult from the way that they've been presenting this game, right? We can't tell what is final and what is previous footage or early build or how early a build is. All of this can be different. I know that a lot of people were going on about that grind rail switching, and some people were saying he jumps in the air and that's just a default thing. No, that's ridiculous. Anyone who's saying that is trying to justify it. They aren't looking at it critically.
What, the rail switching? So some people said with the rail switching that it was like the player actually did go that way and the game is like guiding them back to the other rail or something. I'm gonna go through
I promise you, in the final game, when you jump off that rail, Sonic is probably going to go into a spin ball. Okay?
Right.
that these rails are specifically made so that you can switch between them. They are just Forces rails. They are exactly the same.
Oh, he doesn't
They
go
are
into
missing
spinball
animation.
though. When you jump, he doesn't go into a spinball. He does that kind of like weird flippy thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you're not jumping. You're switching rails.
No. I'm talking like it was introduced I think in Sonic Colors. When you press the jump button, not going left or right, Sonic will do a little a flip. I actually think it's in this footage. Give me a little second.
You could be right there, actually. Yeah.
So yeah, he doesn't go to a spin ball. I just wanted to make sure. I'm saving you from the comment that's like, well, actually, Pox was wrong for 1 minute, and so everything he said sucks now. It's like,
Oh, Evan, I get that. Like, anyway.
I mean, yeah, it's unavoidable, but I'm trying my very best. So
if that's the case, then yeah, that's probably
you'll see it right there.
that
I just
happens.
found it. So yeah, he does a little jump to get into the pink ring.
Okay.
And
Okay, but even then, you can see that animation is completely different from the one that happens when he switches rails.
yeah, it is completely
So
different.
this is simply just a missing animation. But you know what? That can easily be fixed, like seconds. That is not a difficult fix.
Well, okay, so then would you say that when I made a video saying that, and remember, whole context, right? Sega's listening. I make a video talking about why we need to constructively give criticism, but not be toxic and disrespectful. And then I make a video saying bad combat animations because that specifically I think is going to impact a lot of how this game feels. And so you're saying it's possible for them to implement that in a short period of time based on your experience.
Definitely.
Right? So
100%.
that's basically what I said. Sorry, I just have to kind of pat
Listen,
myself on
Evan,
the back here.
when I saw that, you were 100% justified because we've also seen Sonic Team do combat really well. Stylized combat, they've done it really well. I know it's a completely different team. Sonic Unleashed, like regardless of how you feel about the werewolf.
I try to repress that memory. Sorry.
No. Regardless of how people feel about the werewolf, they had style. They knew what made that character look.
Okay,
I'm talking completely from an artistic perspective.
So Pox, I don't know if you were listening earlier, but I think there's this thing that we learned how, and it totally makes sense because they had like Night of the Werehog at the same time, and like around Unleashed's creation, they were really pushing for film quality animation at Marza, and I think that was when the studio was developing and growing.
They were known as VE Studios at the time. They weren't Marza.
Right, and so I believe what we were hearing earlier in the stream from Mike is that there was collaboration between the teams. So there was actually animators from Marza helping them with the actual game animations to make sure that they looked like the animations they were going to be doing for the the intro and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's not out of the question. 100%. When you got a professional animation team, then yeah, that's more than likely what would happen. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like they're doing that a lot of the time.
Where'd
now.
they go? Come back.
I heard that a lot of the animators that were on the main team during Unleashed through the generations, they've all moved to Marza.
And they're probably all working on either Sonic movies now,
yeah,
and either actual movies, because they had Lupin recently, which was really, really great.
Yeah, you can tell when like we see Marza in the Sonic trailers and animations. I will say their CG work in Forces was dreadful. I remember watching that being like, this is
the first trailer.
Worst. All of them.
So
all of them.
I feel like there's an A team and a B team because, and I'm interested in your opinion on this actually.
No.
So the first reveal trailer of Frontiers looked like Marza as I know it.
Yes.
I don't have the footage for it, but it looked like Unleashed opening Marza. Now the second trailer we got for Forces, which is what I actually do have on screen right now, looks like the same people who probably animated the Forces stuff that you're talking about. The first reveals, it just looks like stiffer. And the lighting looks different. Again, this is where my experience is. I'm gonna lean on your experience. Can you describe in any way what the heck I'm talking about?
I do get what you mean, but I'm actually going to contrast you and actually say that this is the same people. I think this is the same people.
Why do you think it looks different then?
Focus. They're animating a lot more here. If you look at that first trailer, they have a run cycle that has secondary animation based on the ground that he's running on. And then you have that big shot with his foot. That's it. That you can focus on tiny parts of animation and have it look amazing, and that's totally fine. I will say, Sonic's CG animation in general has never been as good as Unleashed and Colors opening. Even I think Generations isn't nearly as good.
But okay, so I'm looking at the teaser now. So you're saying that because they're focusing on Sonic's lower body, they're
not focusing on everything.
Well, sorry, what's that?
They're not focusing on everything. They have more time to focus on making things look bouncier, stretchier.
Because they're hiding Sonic's face.
And bear in mind, not just his face. Bear in mind, this footage is you're about to see the end of it. That's it.
Oh, so it's shorter, so it's just less effort.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We don't know if I don't think this isn't part of what we saw in this is just for marketing. This is literally just a trailer. We might even see that other trailer as an in-game cutscene. We don't know. Or it could just be another trailer. We don't know. I do get what you mean, though. It does feel like this has a lot more going into it than the second one does. But I do purely think that they had more time to work on less stuff, so that they really tried to push it. And bear in mind, it did the job. Everyone freaked out when that CG was shown off.
It definitely did the job. And I think they were smart about putting less focus on, because we know it's Sonic, right? He's recognizable, but to make his shoes super detailed and actually pan the camera away from his face was interesting. It definitely
something that you and me have in common is that we love seeing Sonic with his noodle limbs, right?
Yes.
Not too hard of an edge in his elbows and knees. They enforce that. They do that in that trailer. Not so much in the second one.
Not so much in the game.
Not so much in the game. Oh, dude, we need stretchy, fun animations for Sonic's combat. I don't think we're going to see too much different from what we're seeing, right? I do think this is the bulk of what we're going to see. But fixes
they can tweak
and small details, they can tweak it 100%.
Tweak the blending and maybe just what I was suggesting in the video in question was just maybe scale up his fist a bit, but that might be too much because that changes
that's
what
not
he
too
collides
much.
with. Okay.
No.
All right. Sure.
No. His hitboxes aren't on his body. They aren't on his body.
His hitboxes are not attached to his model. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they're not literally his model.
It's something separate, it's separately programmed. They're not tied to the model.
I mean, was it when he runs through those rocks? His hitbox is huge. That he's 2 Sonics away from himself.
You're
so
right.
Hitboxes
This is not
and
speculation. This is not speculation. This is real. Okay.
I can tell you right now that hitboxes are not the responsibility of the animator.
Great. Okay.
They are the responsibility of the in-game designers.
The only reason I thought that is because, and it might be just that Smash Brothers Brawl was weird, but I was talking with Mike before where I had on one game, I was playing online and one had mods, one didn't. Somebody just didn't want to turn off their mods and we're like, it's fine as long as the characters don't change their moves. But the collision was impacted by a separate model on another screen. So we desynced when we tried to hit each other. So maybe Nintendo is weird like that. I wouldn't be surprised because they do all kinds of things.
Games are different. They need to have hitboxes match character. That's a fighting game.
Right.
You gotta remember, this is just a combat-based platformer.
So the hitboxes aren't right, because that would be really frustrating if you pause the game, you're like, it didn't even actually hit me, which happens in Smash Bros. All the time, but whatever.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. It's all about, skillful. You can dodge things on a dime in Smash Brothers, but a single-player combat thing, you really don't want it to be the enemy was too small, so Sonic's foot missed it. That would just be really frustrating.
Oh, wow. There's so much to break down, and I mean, I think people are legitimate when they say yeah, it's too early to tell, but we've been reinforcing the entire live stream, the entire hour-and-a-half live stream, that we are aware that it's not done, and there's no way to know for sure what product we're going to get, but I think it's still important to talk about what we're seeing now if we want to make an impact for the future. I just want to end my point in saying, whatever you see, right, you have no reason to believe that this is what you're going to get. It totally will. It can be. It can 100% be, but there's nothing stopping anything from changing. Well, yes, so never feel like it's impossible to get your feedback heard. But on the other hand, the reason we need to push our criticism out there and why I think it's justified for content creators to make videos or do a live stream like this is because there is somebody above the game devs, like I said before, who decided that what we are seeing right now is marketable. And if there was no outrage or anyone being critical, they would sell us this. Because why would they spend more money if they don't feel like they have to? And so,
no, exactly, you're right.
I get that it could be frustrating, and there's probably some people you know who are disrespectful and rude, but you need to use your critical thinking skills and separate who is being disrespectful and who is being critical. Now, I don't like the way YouTube is right now, and that you have to have, in order to compete, you have to have titles that are attention grabbing. But my stance currently is that as so long as you are not misleading, just because you're critical doesn't mean it's clickbait. And I think it's become that. Like, oh, I don't like what this thumbnail represents, so it's clickbait. No. What? That's not it. Okay, so we have a couple questions for you, Pox, so we're going to get into those before we end off the stream. Mixed Media donates $5 and said, based on what we see animation-wise, thank you so much, Mixed Media, by the way. Based on what we see animation-wise, do you think Sonic Team is short on staff, resources, or time to give Sonic the stylized push he needs?
Ooh,
the tricky
that's
question.
A really good question.
I mean, it's because I mean they've had bangers like the entire stream because they're in the industry as well.
All right.
Environmental design.
Oh damn, that's really good. I know a few friends in environmental design. They're really cool people. Well, we know that this is a downscaled team anyway, like compared to like the bigger scale Sonic games we've had.
Right.
But there's no reason why they wouldn't want to push it. There has to be. I'm not sure what the reason would be, but there has to be a reason why they're choosing not to go all out with this. Maybe it's a sense of a lot of the times with these kind of platformers, they're always drawing from good examples of things. Whether like the basic planning stages could be like from, oh, how does Mario do this? How does Zelda do this? And that actually boils down to a lot of things, including animation. So maybe they're thinking simplistic, concise, readable is the way they want to go, instead of like trying to push those into a more stylized thing. I think that's the one problem I have. It doesn't feel very Sonic most of the time, apart from that flurry kick, right? Yeah. So it could just be not understaffed, but not, I don't want to say understaffed because there's definitely an animation team, but maybe just not enough general people voicing what they think they should be doing. Or it could just be the director's decision.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's tricky to say. That's a really tricky question. I hope we kind of scratch the itch for you, Mixed Media. But thank you so much for the question. Those are the questions we're looking for. You know, we're trying to uncover, or what's the saying when you like turn over stones that are whatever. I clearly don't have it. It's no stone left unturned. There you go.
Leave no stone unturned.
Yeah, I forgot.
You know when you turn rocks around?
You know when you're just like bored, you just kick rocks? Okay, anyway. Rising Revolt donates $5. Thank you so much. Says, how do you feel about the cyberspace stages reusing Green Hill? And have you seen the leaked clips of the intro? Those, I believe, came out like very recently. So we're reacting to this news live.
Oh, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be real. I don't think the cyberspace levels are reusing anything.
You don't think the cyberspace levels are reusing anything? Okay, hold on, Pox, because it's literally at Summer Games Fest, and people are seeing Sky Sanctuary and Green Hill.
Who, though? The people that are watching the blurry videos or the people playing the game?
Okay, but have you seen the Green Hill one? Because I get
how they're... Green Hill. It's not Green Hill.
What is it, Emerald Hill?
There's other places that are green, dude. Like...
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Neo Green Hill Zone. My mistake. For God's
sake. Yeah, no,
I think it's Angel Island. I'm sorry.
Oh my. How about it's just Green Valley?
No. It's Splash Hill. It's Splash Hill. Okay?
Listen.
It's not the same.
Maybe it's Starfall Island. There's a lot of green on here.
Okay, no, that's not funny.
In my honest opinion, I could be completely wrong, and I'd be devastated. Yeah, I've seen all of them. I've seen everything.
How is that not Green Hill, bro?
Oh, because it's green? Is that your argument? Is that it's green?
I need to find it. Can somebody... I don't even know where it is. I literally... Lords showed it to me, and I left to go stream. Right.
Do you know what? If you saw a blurry screen of Sonic 2 in 1992, you would go, oh, they're just reusing Green Hill Zone again.
Context matters, dude. That's the second
It
game.
is context, but this.
Oh,
I
crap,
don't
here
think
it
it's
is.
Green Hill Zone.
Yo, do you see this cutscene?
Oh, you're talking about the opening cutscene?
Okay, so we're not supposed to. Okay, you know what? We're just gonna talk about it because I realized like I'm Tails channel and I probably shouldn't show footage that Sega doesn't want us to like see because technically that stuff isn't supposed to be being distributed. If it is Green Hill, that is a shame. But again, what I keep saying is that if the scale of the game ends up justifying reusing so many assets, it's not gonna bother me. That's my stance on it. But that means that every single time I see them reuse assets, that bar raises because I'm thinking, are they reusing assets for the sake of giving us a big world and a lot to do in it? Great. Are they leaning on it because they're like, oh crap, we took on more than we can handle? I'm gonna be able to tell that when I play the game. So
Well, yeah, but that's what everyone was like in Forces, especially with how quickly we saw, like, what was it? It was 2 games of 4 generations, and then we had another version of Green Hill Zone and Chemical Plant. Like, that was ridiculous. And they were literally the same assets, but not looking as good.
So, okay, regardless of what is true or false, regardless of what is true or false, if we get Green Hill and Chemical Plant again in Frontiers, even if it's short levels in the cyberspace, and that's what cyberspace is, what would be your reaction?
Not surprised.
Not surprised, but are you upset? Are you, what are you?
I'm mid. It doesn't seem like these. I'm hoping these cyberspace levels aren't the selling point for the game. I've heard, all the leaks saying that they are. I'd be devastated if that's the case. But they're short little stages. I'm sure they still look beautiful. It's just Green Hill Zone again. I don't think it's Green Hill Zone, but if it is, I'm gonna be devastated.
So devastated is the word you're using.
Oh, I don't want to see Green Hill Zone anymore, man.
Right, that's how I feel, and I think that that's fair. It's upsetting because we like a lot. I think of why Sonic fans get at each other's throats so much is because they're literally like, bro, I've been made fun of enough, and so anything
I will say it's very toxic. I haven't seen, like, even with Forces, I have not seen this much, like, it's not even banter at this point, it's general aggression. People are getting so angry on both sides about this game, and it's baffling.
And that's what we're
like
here
to each other, not even so much the game, just to each other. There's a lot of fighting going on, man.
But that's what we're trying to help, at least so that, like, maybe the Twitter threads will have something to refer to, because, like, I do think there's legitimacy into people going like, what do you know, influencer? Like, you're not a game designer. Well, the part that people don't know is that, like, I make sure that I talk to people who do this for a living, so because otherwise I wouldn't feel like I could say stuff. And that's what this stream is for, to be like, dude, trust me, like, I have friends that do this, so, and I can't know everything, I study theater performance, I do script writing, I do visual arts, I do acting, voice acting as well, character design. I can't do everything, bro, but I like to think that studying a lot of different art forms gives me the qualifications to at least make a YouTube video of speculation.
Nah, you're not working on the game, Evan. You can't say anything.
Yeah, like,
you don't know what's going on behind those doors.
Sorry, if Azuka isn't saying it, I'm not gonna watch it. Okay, whatever.
But it's okay because I can say that it's great because I'm being positive.
Well, the thing is, even the actual people working on it can't even tell you the truth. So who are you gonna listen to? Like, whatever.
You gotta listen to yourself when you buy the game. Because here's the thing: ultimately, you're the one spending money on it.
It's true.
Do you got to make sure that you're liking what you're buying, unless you're a dedicated Sonic fan that buys them anyway.
All right, so we got 2 more questions to hammer out, and I am hungry. So we got a $5 donation from Brobor. Hey, question for both of you. What do you think about the Forces model used? Should they have used a model similar to Marza Animations?
Do you want to go first?
Okay, so long quills doesn't bother me so much because I think the reason they're doing it is because they're having problems animating Sonic running with his quills being so long and his head being as big as it is. So I think it's their attempt to kind of organize his quills. That and, the recent popularity of classic Sonic, they're like, oh, maybe we can lean into that a little bit. But you would know more about what benefits shorting his quills would kind of give to the animators. So tell the chat if I'm just like blowing hot water out of my arse.
Ah. No, you got some legitimacy there. Thing is, though, my personal preference is I prefer Long Quill Sonic. I will admit, when we got that teaser at the Game Awards, I was one of those people that was like, Short Quill Sonic Forces model. I got all hot and bothered about it, but I do understand where they're going with it. You're right, it is trickier, but Sonic's a character that expresses through motion. He looks so good with like the quills helping his direction of movement. I mean, the recent stuff with Prime, that's Long Quill Sonic, and it works really well when he's going around. That's a cat. Hello, cat. He works really well with that. But similar to what you were saying with classic Sonic, I think they're also trying to help push in, the tie-ins with movie Sonic. Especially with the huge uprising that character design had. He's got shorter quills and kind of follows that mentality.
Oh, he has shorter quills? I didn't really notice it there.
Yeah. Well, he's got same size quills as the Forces model, but he's stouter. He's got shorter quills. I'm sure it's a lot easier to manage and get and push better poses without breaking the model. And I get that. That's totally fine. I don't think you should sacrifice style for that. I think you should.
Well, they're not even pushing the model, right?
No, they're not. But they should.
If they were, then this long quills would. I honestly, my thing on the short quills, long quills, I didn't tweet about it because it really. I know. I just said that like every little thing like goes into your immersion of a game, but again, that's why I said immersion, because long quills, short quills, isn't impacting your immersion at all. Like to make this world feel real.
I argue it's bringing in your immersion by making you feel like you're actually styling with Sonic.
Well, yeah, but that can be brought to you with animations, and I think I would argue that takes priority over lengthening his quills.
Yeah, but that can enhance it with longer quills. But again, I totally get why they're doing it. It's just like personal preference. But now that I'm seeing it, I don't really care that they're using the Forces model, because they're not going to want to change up Sonic that much, especially with how they're marketing him. What I don't understand is why they're still using longer quilled Sonic in Marza models. Like, they look like different characters sometimes.
Every time you say Marza, it sounds like you're saying Matza, which is my cat's name, and I think that's why he came over.
Influence.
Okay, we got one more question. Though I am realizing that Sonic Pox's his time slot has been significantly longer than the other guests, but you know what? That's fine. He had to wait the longest, so that's fair. The last question is from Nerds Ramblings. Thank you so much for the $5, by the way. Do you think the Switch version is forcing lower quality assets? I know as a designer, I've had to cut back things if a platform has limiting power.
When developing a game, you should push for the system that is probably going to have like the biggest restrictions.
So then the answer is yes, right? So they're building it for the Switch first because they don't want to have to downgrade stuff later.
They're not building it for the Switch first. I think they are prioritizing the higher end consoles, and we're going to see a huge drawback on the Switch port. Definitely.
But it'll be like resolution, if anything, right? That's typically
it'll be resolution, frame rate, more than likely shadow quality assets. This is the highest fidelity we've seen in a Sonic game since Sonic Unleashed. 100%. This is about to take over as the most beautiful Sonic game. And it looks like they really are trying to push for like PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. And then they're going to be, I think at the same time, they are working out how to make it work for the Switch, but it's not going to be anything like what we see.
Do you think that might be why they're barely, like, they're so incrementally innovating Sonic to some people? Because maybe the current engine they have, they want to make sure that it can still run on Switch. So the more new
Switch
things
is the Switch is holding them back. But the Switch holds every game that isn't developed by Nintendo back.
Ugh.
Like, that's why most of the time Switch ports come later. You know? Some games run perfectly on the Switch because they're given the extra time to develop it, but this is planning to have the Switch come out the Switch port come out the exact same time as all the other ones. So they're having to they are having to prioritize both sets of consoles at the same time.
Jeez, and that's something that, like, I know people compare Nintendo to Sega all the time, but Nintendo doesn't have to do that, you know? So in a way, like, massive props that they, like, that's a lot more work.
People, I've seen people, like, when they defend this, if you know, whatever, I don't think about defense squads and all that, but they say Breath of the Wild ran on the Switch. Breath of the Wild was developed for the Switch. Well, it was developed for the Wii U and then brought over to the Switch, but it was still developed on Nintendo hardware.
Right.
So they only have that to prioritize themselves, you know? This is going multi-console and PC. That's a huge undertaking. It's massive.
And I guess, I wonder if maybe this, like, maybe we can enter an era, if this game does well enough with the movie's success, right? Do you think we'll ever get into an era of Sonic where they don't have to release multi-platform? Because Sonic was much, much smaller before the movies. And other games don't have to do that, right? They can prioritize one, or, you know, at least the Sony and the Microsoft consoles.
I think we'll get to a point where Sonic will not prioritize Switch ports to come out the same day, but Sonic games sell best on Nintendo consoles. And the people above the devs clearly know that, and they're always going to want to push, like, oh, well, that's where we're going to make the most of our money. The Switch port. Oh, let's make sure we get it on the Switch, but also make it really, 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 really pretty. And that's a toll. That's a big toll. And, you know, Forces even showed that, where, like, Forces wasn't too bad on its conversion, but a lot of stuff wasn't in game aside from the actual, you know, gameplay. But cutscenes were all of the cutscenes were pre-rendered. The frame rate was cut in half. The resolution was brought down. You know, it's a big thing. So that's another thing that people have to keep an eye out for when games are being made for those consoles. It's not like it was back in the 2000s, you know, where you had 3 consoles that mainly worked on the same development stuff, but, you know, PS2 ports of games usually sucked.
Right, yeah.
It's weird, man. It's weird.
All right, I feel myself running out of energy, but we got one more question, and so I'll end it with that one. Rising Revolt says it's 100% going to be a cloud version for the Switch. I don't know.
Could be.
About that. It could be.
It's a new revolutionary age. You know, it's something that they've realized that they can do, and they don't have to focus too much on it. I mean, Kingdom Hearts is god-awful on the Switch. Kingdom Hearts 3 is god-awful on the Switch, because it's a cloud version. And that means that you can't really play it on the go. So what's the point? Get it on console. Get it on an actual console. If you're not going to play it on the go, then why would you get it for the Switch?
That's true. I mean, I don't recall anyone freaking out about the Forces Switch port. They were just freaking out about what was in the game in the end. So I'm not too worried about the Switch port myself, because it feels like, I don't know.
Okay, best case example, Sonic Colors Ultimate.
What about that?
How did the Switch port go when it launched?
Well, Blind Squirrel, that it doesn't matter what version you got of that. It was more or less kind of questionable. But yes, the Switch port was much worse. But that's just like saying, like, yeah, the Forces port, the Switch port of Forces was definitely the worst one. I just don't remember people like freaking out about it.
Well,
so,
wasn't the Switch port where all those seizures came from?
In Colors Ultimate, I think you could. I think you could still get seizure-inducing things in any build of it, at least at launch. They patched it out of all versions,
which is good.
The Switch version was definitely the worst. But I think it's the same argument, right? The Forces Switch version is definitely the worst of them. But I didn't see anyone like freak out about it. It was just like low resolution.
It's still playable. It's still playable, but it's those things that they need to keep an eye on when moving over to the Switch. I'll say this, right? When I was at Climax, one of the people working there said to me, developing for the Switch is like developing for a mobile phone. That's what they compared it to.
Oh my god. Okay. Wacky.
Yeah.
I guess we'll leave it at that note. Thanks again, Pox, for talking with me as long as you did.
No, thanks for having me on.
I really feel like, at least for me, I feel more informed about the discourse that's going on. I feel like I got a better head on my shoulders thanks to our 3 wonderful guests. today.
We've got some amazing people on here. Seriously.
Yeah, I'm happy everyone said yes. This worked out really, really well. Minus the like pseudo start. We like literally did a whole intro that was like beautiful, and I wasn't live. But yeah, I think this was great, and it was a nice turnout, and we had a good discussion. I'll be honest, I didn't look at the chat too much, so I apologize if there was some toxicity in there. But I mean, you know what? It's kind of unavoidable.
I saw some people meowing. So that's quite good, I guess.
That's perfect. Yeah, they were reacting to the cat. I love that. All right, guys, have a great rest. Yeah, Matsu wants to get out. He's telling me to end the stream. All right, guys, have a great weekend. I will see you next week. I believe IGN is continuing to do gameplay showcases. I'm looking at the wrong spot for the camera because it moved. IGN is going to continue their showcase of Sonic Frontiers. I believe, take this with a grain of salt, I do not know, it's not confirmed, but I believe it's Tuesday at noon. So I'll see you live Tuesday at noon.
Keep an eye out for the silver demo for Project